everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be doing a deep dive today.
Ooh, fun.
Into self-care as self-respect.
Okay.
We've got two great pieces from Morningscape Mindset Media to help us out here.
Nice.
One is a full article, and the other one is kind of a summary of the main points.
Okay.
And they're both by Ferdy DeLima.
Oh, yeah. Delima's great.
Yeah.
I love his work.
A wellness expert with over 30 years of experience. So. Yeah, so he definitely knows what he's talking about.
That's wow.
So we're really going to try and unpack this idea of self-care as the ultimate form of self-respect.
Okay.
Because, you know, it's a little bit more than bubble baths and face masks.
Right. Yeah, you hear self-care and you just think like spa day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about, you know, how self-care can be about setting boundaries and how it can actually impact those around you.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
The ripple effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So one of the things that DeLima really emphasizes is this expansive definition of self-care. It's not just about, you know, pampering yourself. It's really about this holistic approach to well-being.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, if you think about respecting a friend, you wouldn't just like, you know, give them a bunch of gifts or tell them a bunch of empty compliments. It's about like actually caring for their needs.
Yeah.
You know, both their physical needs and their mental needs.
Exactly. And that's kind of what DeLima's saying about self-care.
Okay.
It's really about acknowledging your worth. And I don't know, have you ever thought of it that way before?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've definitely gotten caught up in like the, you know, what I'm doing for self-care.
Right.
And not the reason behind it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
why am I actually doing this?
Yeah.
But that idea of worth is so important.
Absolutely. And that's really where this connection to self-respect comes in.
Okay. So how does he tie those two together?
Well, he's saying that these small daily acts of self-care are essentially like telling yourself, hey, I matter.
Well, that's good.
Right. Like every time you choose a healthy meal or you prioritize sleep, you're basically affirming your own worth.
It's like a little reminder throughout the day.
Exactly. And he gives some really specific examples of what this might look like.
Okay. Other examples.
So, you know, obviously prioritizing your health and well-being through things like, you know, exercise, nutrition, sleep.
The basic.
Exactly. But then he also talks about setting boundaries as a huge act of self-respect.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And it's
so hard.
It is so hard.
Yeah.
And it's really about protecting your time, your energy, your emotional well-being.
Right. Like all of it.
Yeah.
All those things matter.
And then, you know, obviously cultivating those positive relationships, both by seeking out supportive connections, but also distancing yourself from those toxic ones.
Right. You got to do both.
You do have to do both.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget about that second part. It's easy to focus on the positive.
Right. And just think like, oh, I'll just surround myself with good people.
Yeah.
But sometimes you really do have to like make that conscious effort.
To step away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these aren't just abstract ideas, you know?
Right.
They have practical applications for everyday lives.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say, like, how do we actually do this?
I know, right?
It sounds great in theory, but...
Yeah. So he does give us some tips.
Okay, good.
So he talks about creating a self-care routine.
Okay.
That includes activities for your mind, body, and soul.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
So it's very holistic.
Yes.
Okay.
He also talks about practicing mindfulness.
That's a popular one these days.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone's talking about mindfulness.
Right. Through things like meditation or deep breathing exercises.
Yeah.
And then he talks about staying active in ways that you enjoy.
That's good.
So, you know, like yoga, running, dancing.
I like that he included dance.
I know.
It's not always.
Part of the conversation.
It's not.
Yeah.
But it's so good for you.
It is.
Both physically and mentally.
For sure.
And then, of course, nourishing your body with a balanced diet.
Oh, of course.
We can't forget about that.
The fuel.
Yes.
You need the fuel.
And prioritizing sleep.
Oh, that's a big one for me.
Yeah, 7 to 9 hours.
I know. I never get enough.
Me neither.
I'm always tired.
But, you know, he really stresses the importance of it.
Okay, good.
And he even says, you know, what makes his advice stand out?
Oh, what's that?
Is that he emphasizes the experience of these activities.
Okay.
So it's not just about like, you know, eating your vegetables.
Right.
It's about finding movement that brings you joy.
That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not about like punishing workouts.
Yeah.
It's about finding something that you actually like to do.
Like dancing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's really about making choices that honor your well-being on every level.
And this applies to our mental and emotional health too, right?
Exactly.
It's not just
not just the physical.
stuff, yeah.
But that's where it gets a little bit trickier, I think, with the self-respect part.
Okay, so how does that play out in our minds?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's easy to see how choosing a healthy meal is self-respect.
Right.
Versus, like, going for the fast food. But
Yeah.
what about, like, our thoughts and our emotions? How does self-respect tie into that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, DeLima talks about the importance of setting boundaries as a huge act of self-respect.
Right.
And I think this is where a lot of us struggle.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Learning to say no is still a work in progress for me.
Oh, me too.
It's so hard.
It is. So how does he approach this idea of boundaries?
Well, he really stresses that it's not about being selfish.
Okay.
It's about recognizing your limits.
Yeah.
And protecting your energy, both mental and emotional.
Uh-huh.
He even talks about setting boundaries in our digital lives.
Oh, interesting.
Like turning off notifications after a certain hour.
Yeah. That's so relevant these days.
I know, right?
It's like we're constantly bombarded with information and demands on our attention.
Constantly.
So, like, deliberately disconnecting almost feels radical.
It does.
But he's saying it's essential for our well-being.
Okay.
It's a way of saying, my time and energy are valuable, and I choose how to spend them.
That's true. Self-respect.
It is.
I like that.
It's about taking control.
Yeah. Taking back control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of just letting the world dictate
Right.
how you spend your time.
Yes, exactly. So we've got to set those boundaries even in our digital lives.
Even in our digital lives,
Okay.
which is hard,
It is hard, but
important.
important.
All right.
So how do we actually put this into practice?
I know, right? Because, like, we've talked about these, like, broad ideas.
Yeah.
But, like, how do we actually make this happen in our everyday lives?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost like, we have to retrain ourselves
Yeah.
to value our own needs and well-being
Uh-huh.
as much as we value the needs of others.
Yeah, it's so easy to put everyone else first.
It is.
And then, like, completely neglect ourselves.
Totally.
And DeLima makes a really interesting point about this.
Oh, what's that?
He says that neglecting our own well-being
Okay.
can actually hinder our ability to help others in the long run.
Ooh. I like where this is going. Tell me more.
So he uses this analogy of, like, putting on your own oxygen mask on an airplane before helping others.
Right.
It's like you can't effectively support those around you
Yeah.
if you're depleted and running on empty yourself.
Oh, that's such a good analogy.
I've definitely been in situations where I'm, like, trying to pour from an empty cup, and it's like, it doesn't really help anyone.
No, it doesn't.
So we really need to prioritize filling our own cups first.
Yes.
So that we can actually show up as our best selves for others.
Exactly. And that includes, like, tending to our emotional and mental well-being, not just the physical stuff.
Right, because it's all connected.
It is.
But how do we actually, like, incorporate this idea of self-care, self-respect into our daily lives?
Right.
Because it can feel kind of overwhelming.
I can.
To think about, like, adding a whole bunch of new things to our already busy schedules.
Yeah, I don't have time for that.
Right.
Well, DeLima emphasizes that it doesn't have to be about grand gestures or elaborate routines. It's really about making small, consistent choices that demonstrate our commitment to our own well-being.
So, like, what kind of small choices are we talking about?
It could be as simple as, like, taking 5 minutes each morning to meditate or do some gentle stretching. Or maybe it's making sure to get outside for a walk during your lunch break and soak up some sunshine.
I like those ideas.
And I think that highlights something really important.
What's that?
It's about finding what works for you.
Right.
Maybe for someone else, it's a long bath.
Yeah.
Or journaling before bed. The key is to make it personal and meaningful.
I love that because it's not about, like, checking off boxes on a to-do list.
Exactly.
It's about creating a self-care practice that feels nourishing.
Yes.
And supportive to you.
That's the key.
Yeah.
It's got to feel good.
DeLima also talks about the importance of being mindful of our self-talk.
Oh, yeah, our inner critic.
How does that fit into all of this?
Well, he argues that the way we speak to ourselves can either support or sabotage our self-care efforts.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into those patterns of negative self-talk.
Oh, tell me about it.
Especially when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
By when you need it the most.
It's like the worst time.
Oh, yes.
And I am my own worst critic sometimes.
I think we all are.
Probably.
To some extent.
Yeah.
But DeLima encourages us to, like, challenge those negative thoughts.
Yeah, okay.
And replace them with affirmations of self-worth. So instead of, like, beating ourselves up for not being perfect, we can practice self-compassion.
Yeah.
And acknowledge that, we're doing the best we can with the resources we have.
That is such a good reminder because it's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would extend to a loved one. And that in itself is an act of self-respect.
It really is.
Yeah.
And speaking of like the ripple effect,
Okay.
Delima goes on to explore the broader societal implications of self-care as self-respect.
Ooh, now we're getting to the good stuff.
I know, right?
I'm really curious to hear what he has to say about that.
Well, he suggests that as more individuals embrace self-care, it creates this ripple effect that can transform entire communities.
That makes sense because when we feel good and take care of ourselves, we're more likely to show up as our best selves in all areas of our lives.
Exactly. And he uses the example of workplace wellness programs.
Okay.
So when companies prioritize the well-being of their employees, it creates a more positive and productive work environment.
So it's not just about like individual benefits. It can actually impact the culture of an entire organization.
Absolutely. Employees are happier, healthier, and more engaged.
Yeah.
Which leads to, increased productivity and creativity. And that positive energy can then like spill over into their personal lives and their interactions with others.
It's fascinating to consider how something as simple as prioritizing our own well-being can have such far-reaching consequences.
It really speaks to the interconnected nature of our lives and the power of individual actions to create collective change.
Yeah.
Delima also touches on the importance of self-care in addressing systemic issues like burnout and mental health stigma.
Those are huge issues that affect so many people.
They are.
How does he see self-care playing a role in those conversations?
So it sounds like he's saying that by normalizing self-care and promoting it as essential for a healthy life, we can start breaking down those harmful stigmas around burnout and mental health.
Yeah, and I really like that because it's like,
we're creating a more supportive and compassionate society where people feel empowered to prioritize their well-being without judgment or shame.
Exactly. And it all circles back to that core concept of self-respect. When we value ourselves enough to take care of our needs, it sends a powerful message to others.
It does.
And helps to create a culture of well-being.
I love how he connects that individual journey of self-care to like a larger societal shift.
Yeah.
It's inspiring to think about the ripple effect we can create.
It is.
By simply choosing to prioritize our own well-being.
It's almost like a quiet revolution starting from within.
Oh, I like that.
And it reminds me of something Delima said about how self-care can be an act of defiance against a culture that often prioritizes busyness and productivity over personal well-being.
It's like reclaiming our time and energy and saying, no, I deserve to take care of myself. I matter.
Exactly. And when we model that behavior for others, it can inspire them to do the same.
It's about creating a ripple effect of positive change that starts with each of us.
So to wrap things up, we've explored Delima's unique perspective on self-care as the ultimate form of self-respect. We've talked about practical applications, the ripple effect on others, and its potential to create a more compassionate world.
And we've seen how those consistent self-care practices, those small choices we make each day, can have a profound impact not only on our own lives, but on the lives of those around us.
This has been a really insightful deep dive.
It is.
Delima's work always offers so much food for thought.
I know, he's great.
And I hope our listeners have gained some valuable takeaways from this conversation.
Me too.
And as we close, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question.
Ooh, hit me.
If self-care, I.S. self-respect.
Okay.
What's one small act of self-care that you can commit to today to honor your worth?
It could be anything, taking a few deep breaths, enjoying a walk in nature, setting aside time for a hobby you love, or simply saying no to something that drains your energy. Whatever resonates with you.
Remember, it's not about perfection or adding more to your plate.
Right.
It's about making a conscious choice to honor your well-being and demonstrate that you matter.
Yes, I love that.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of self-care as self-respect.
Thanks for having me.
We hope it's inspired you to prioritize your well-being and embrace those small acts of kindness toward yourself, not just today, but every day.
Absolutely.
Until next time, take care.